Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to another great episode here on Luca with me. And I have to tell you, I'm really excited. I'm excited for every show, but Mike, I am really, really excited to have you on with me today because everything that you are and that what you do and what you're about is very close to my heart. I have a brother, one of my younger brothers, just retired after 20 plus years as a police officer, and so it's I know 20 plus years sorry, as a police officer. I know what that is, and I know what it feels like. And sorry, I've had it recording. And it's really hard. And what you guys do for us in our country, nobody understands unless you are in the thick of it or you're a family member of it. And thank you for your service. Thank you for everything that you've done for our country. I know you are also a retired police officer. You are a war combat veteran from the Gulf War and a nurse. And you're also the founder of Peacekeepers for Life. So I just want to give the floor to you and speak a little bit about, your life, your experiences, and what really got you going and motivated to continue on and take care of our veterans and those, with our retired law enforcement and things as such, because it's amazing.
Well, I'll tell you, first of all, thanks a lot for having me. I really appreciate it. I know we've been trying to get this scheduled for a while now, but I'm really glad and honored to be able to be part of this, just to get the word out and just kind of share a little bit about my story, a little backstory, and just a little bit about what it is that me and my organization have been doing.
Yeah.
Little background on me. Graduated high school, was not the typical, wanted to go to college, all that kind of stuff. So I went in the military and I joined the Navy back when I was 17 years old.
Oh, wow.
And it was one of those kind of things that I really wanted to do. And I got my uncle to basically go as my guardian and sign the papers because my mom wouldn't do it. So I went and joined and went in and did my service. I was a Navy corpsman, which is the medical element of the Navy.
Mm-hmm.
And I worked with the Marines. Like you'd said, I served in the Gulf War. I did 6 years active duty and then went and switched over to the reserves and literally got activated a year later for the Gulf War in 1990. Did my service there, saw some combat, did my my stuff there, came back, and I literally, because of my medical background, I needed a job because I was getting out of the military.
Yeah.
And so I went into nursing and I started being an EMT and doing different stuff as an EMT and worked as a paramedic on the streets and worked in a couple of emergency rooms and whatnot, and just got some good exposure and stuff. And then I thought, I want to do something different, but I want to do something that's a career because it was going to be more rewarding. So I chose law enforcement, looked into law enforcement, joined law enforcement in the early 90s, and started off as a reserve and basically worked a bunch of different assignments as a reserve. You kind of work wherever the need is, where they need body service. Yeah. So I worked for a pretty big department in Southern California. Don't judge me. But basically it was one of those things.
Southern California is, it's probably one of the better areas right now.
Exactly. So I did that and I worked as a reserve for about 6 or 7 years. Still did my nursing. I was a pediatric oncology nurse. Worked at Children's Hospital in Orange County. And did that for a few years while I was working as a cop part-time. So I literally had 2 full-time jobs because I was working 3 12-hour shifts at the hospital, and then I'd work 3 12-hour shifts at the police department, but as a reserve, which I'm considered technically a part-time employee. But I really had a drive, and I wanted to be a cop ultimately. So worked my way through the ranks, then went to the full-time academy, got hired on, went to another department, worked there. And I ended up doing a total of a little over 20 years with my reserve time and my regular time. And then fast forward from 2012 when I retired to 2015, I lost 6 people that I knew personally, a couple of veterans and firefighters, as well as police officers, to suicide. And I thought to myself, I said, this is not something that I can really take laying down. And people that really know who Mike Zannitto is, they're going to say, Mike's got a huge heart. He'll give his shirt off his back, but he's very caring to a fault, which means that I have no boundaries and I have no limitations as to what I do. I don't make everybody happy, but it's one of those kind of things where my passion and my heart's in the right place. So that's what keeps driving me.
Right.
So 2015, I started basically going out and just doing awareness and basically just talks and talking to small groups. I started at small police departments. I started at hospitals. I mean, and it just kind of evolved from there. My whole dynamic of it was I could easily go get my PhD. I have my bachelor's and my master's already. So I could easily go get my PhD and go get it and be a counselor and be a psychologist and talk to one person 1 hour for 6 hours a day. That's only 6 people. But if I can go to a conference and talk about specific things about PTSI and, having stress and being human and having normal reactions and all those things that you're feeling, when you go home after your work day or your work week or whatever, or that bad call, that those things happen to real people and we're human and there's just no ifs, ands, or buts about it.
And I don't think
I
don't think people nowadays understand the reality of that. I think because of a lot of the rhetoric that has been going around for the past few years. Obviously, we know the bad rhetoric, and again, unless you are a part of the family or you are a part of the service, people don't understand the real human connection that you have in this job and how hard it is to deal with those situations that you guys have to deal with on a day-to-day basis without, getting the respect that you deserve every single day.
And I'll tell you, it's interesting because, looking into where I started or we started this organization and where we are today is that people ask me and say, okay, well, the VA takes care of their veterans. Okay. Okay. Yeah, I know. But anyway, either way, the VA takes care of their veterans. So what is it that's different about you? And this is what people are asking me. So, well, what's different about me is that I'm I'm a big picture guy. Okay. Where are most of our veterans going when they get out of the service? They're going into public service. They're going into healthcare. They're going into, these services where they're stuffing down whatever trauma or whatever they have down in their pockets, way down in their heart, way down in their gut, because they need to pass that test to get hired as police officers and firefighters.
Yeah.
And I know I'm going out on a limb and I'm giving a pretty strong opinion, but that's the reality. That's the thing about caring to a fault. I'm never going to deny that. I'm never going to deny saying that. And it's one of those kind of things where I've seen it firsthand, where I've seen some of the toughest, baddest, strongest guys, men and women that have done this job, whether it's police, fire, paramedic, nurse, whatever. And I'll get into COVID a little bit where the dynamic kind of changed a little bit, but we can't forget that it doesn't matter what job it is. You're still talking about human people. You're talking about men and women who put their pants on and, get dressed and brush their teeth the same way I do.
Exactly.
So it doesn't make them any more special. They just have a special training, if you will. And then they learn and they go out and get exposed to these things. People always ask me to say, I'm 58. I'm 59 years this year. And they asked me to say, well, how do you feel about your careers? And I said, I wouldn't change one. I've seen some things that I wouldn't even share with my kids in my lifetime, in my adult life. And that includes combat, nursing, police, fire, all that stuff. Doesn't make me any special. Doesn't make me a hero. None of that kind of stuff. But I've looked at it. The fact is that I've gone through those things. I've seen those things, been exposed to those things. And here I am talking today. I survived them.
Yeah.
And I will tell you, I've never once been suicidal. I've been depressed, but who hasn't? Who hasn't had a bad breakup? Who hasn't lost a loved one? Who hasn't, had a bad car accident that cost them money? Who hasn't been arrested for DUI and they think it ends their life? I mean, not everybody, but it's just, where I'm going with this. So it's just a generalized thing. So these are all human nature things. So the thing about, and one big thing about the stigma is that it's okay to not be okay. People need to understand that.
Yeah.
And I don't care how tough you are, how people look up to you and all that kind of stuff. Everybody has bad days. Everybody's going to react to situations differently.
Yeah.
And just
Well,
because
and
you
we do
react.
that just on a normal basis, even whether you work in a corporate building, if you're a CEO, I mean, it's the same thing. But the fact that it's the line of work that you guys do,
Right.
that is a calling that I know I couldn't do. And, I know for me, when my brother finally retired, even my sister-in-law, she's like, you can breathe easy now, sis, because even, because my brother called me one day. I think even him being a police officer, he called me out of the blue one day and he goes, sis. And I said, yeah. He goes, is it hard for you to answer the phone when I was in, whenever Ange would call you? And I said, every single time. Like I mean, she would probably call, she would call just to like say hi or catch up and see how the kids are doing or whatever, just to catch up on my life. But it would take me a minute, like a good minute to answer her call, and to just compose myself. And I don't think people understand that even as a family member, that impact that it has on you as well. And so my brother's like, sis, I never knew that. I said, well, yeah, brother, it was hard to see her name call me. I said, I can now, with ease. But God bless you and everybody else. And I'm so glad that there are people like you, Mike, that understand that and have that strength to be able to help others because of what you've seen and what you've been through. Because I know many out there need people like you that have that ability and can, move aside those scary thoughts and feelings that I know a lot of our men and women in service or in law enforcement have. And again, people don't understand that, and it's really sad. So this is why I really wanted you to be here to share that, and especially what's happening with our veterans right now. We know that they are just not being taken care of.
Yeah, it's interesting. That's a whole other show, I'll tell you right now.
Yeah.
But I will tell you this, okay? Because of my background, I'm very fortunate to be able to utilize the VA system the way it's supposed to be used. Because I understand the medical part of it. I understand the administrative. I understand, the billing and specialties and going to different special doctors on. I'm one of those fortunate vets. Okay. I'm a disabled vet, so I fall under the VA category.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things where, I'm the lucky one. But that's another reason why part of this program is I'll advocate a lot for those veterans that struggle and have their issues, but we do it in a priority state. I hate the word stigma, just like I don't like the word PTSD or the acronym PTSD, because in my opinion, and I'll tell you, and I'll argue this till the end, it's not a disorder. It's an injury or an illness. The disorder is that stigma, that myth that tells that veteran or that first responder that they are broken. And they're really not broken. Mm-mm. They're hurt. They have pain, but pain can be fixed. Pain can be healed. A disorder, most disorders by the definition, it's going to require medication, all kinds of other crazy stuff. So, and I have the word crazy, I don't like that. But just like the stigma with in the veteran community, this 22 to none, that won't come out of my mouth unless I'm doing a podcast, because 0 is my number. Yeah. 1 is too many. You want to call it 22 and none, 1 is too many. And that includes first responders, veterans, police and fire. It doesn't matter. So for us to be focused and where do we get this where do we get the stats? Where do we get 22? I mean, 22 is probably a number that they did kind of like the FBI with their crime stats. They did it, at the beginning of the year, and they changed by December. They're 3 times as much as what they are. But the 22 to none, I don't care about that. 1's too many. So my focus is on that 1, just like the masses. I did a conference a couple of years ago at the International Association of Chiefs of Police, and I did a breakout panel and presented the PTSI dynamic about how veterans are going into the first responder arenas after their stuff. And I literally had chiefs come up to me from some pretty major departments and said, you know what, you put it in a perspective that we would have never thought of. And a couple of them were vets, a couple of them were not vets, And it was one of those things where they just said, okay, they said, hey, we're going to take some of these things that you said back to our department. I just saved a life. Each one of those guys that said something, I just saved a life. And that's the way, that was my takeaway from it. And it's not a matter of patting me on the back or any of that, but it's one of those things that I needed to understand that what I'm doing is working. It's I'm putting the message out to the masses. I mean, there were 1,300 police chiefs from all over the country at this conference, and the breakout session had a couple hundred. So it's a feel good moment, but it's a humbling experience too, because there's a lot more experience in that room. But me bringing the streets and trenches perspective, if you will, that really helped me.
And then what is and then from there, this person that I just saved a life. They're gonna, then in turn do what they can to speak to their brothers and sisters, and to try to help them. So that's an amazing connection that you have, and that you can, help save somebody else's life. And it's really crazy that people don't understand the statistics of how many of our law enforcement and veterans and first responders that actually do take their lives. I just don't think people pay enough attention to that. And that's why it was very important for me to bring you on this show. And
I appreciate that.
So, and if you can, pardon my ignorance, but what's the difference between when they say PTSD or PTSI?
Okay, so PTSD, it goes back to way before, back in the World Wars. Used to be shell shock. It was called shell shock. And moving forward, as we do, they start, everything's got to have a label for some reason. And now we're an acronym. So everything's got an acronym. LUCA stands for something. PFL stands for something. I mean, every acronym has a meaning or a dynamic about it.
Right.
So it's one of those kind of things where if you look at it from the perspective of the dynamic of the word, it's post-traumatic stress. You could cut it off there. Whether it's an incident, whether it's an event, whatever. But to label it as a disorder, you're kind of putting that umbrella over it, kind of like the stigma of 22 to 9.
Yeah.
Whereas you got the what is it? The oh my gosh, I had a brain fart. Sorry about that.
Okay.
So, and then PTSI, injury or an illness. Okay. So it's one of those kind of things where it's caused from an event, just like if you were riding your bike and you crash and you break your leg. There's an event, there's an incident, there's an injury. Okay. But what do you do with a broken leg? You splint it, you ice it, you take medication, you cast it, and it heals. The disorder is that misleading stigma that it's not something that can, can be. Yeah.
Gotcha.
So, yeah. Does that make sense?
It makes sense. No, that makes a lot of sense. And
again, that's my opinion. And I have people that are out there saying, no, it's a disorder and these people are broken. And I say, okay, well, they're in it for the wrong reasons. They're doing this for the wrong reasons, in my opinion.
And I can see the contrast between the two and why you feel the need to, call it that or get rid of the disorder, because you're right. I mean, a disorder has a different complete meaning, because had these people not experienced these traumas, had these people not gone through what they did, then they wouldn't be affected the way they are today. So how is that a disorder? So I can completely see that.
And it's an uphill battle, because you have to change the thought process or the mentality on it. And with the VA, you brought up the VA, is that, the VA is a broken system, just like, and not to get political, but the criminal justice system is a broken system. Okay. Yeah. And we need to work on the root of it before we start pointing fingers at who's going to do this. And that doesn't fix the problem. It's like the old saying goes, my mom, my parents, my grandparents used to tell me all the time, come in and complain about something, but have a solution, or have another option. Don't just come in and whine and moan about something that's happening when you can be part of the solution. And those kind of resonated with me. And when I raised my kids, I told them the same thing. But it's one of those kind of things where we can sit back it's just like whenever I hear a veteran saying, the VA sucks. Well, tell me why it sucks. Well, it sucks because I can't get an appointment. Okay, well, when they call you back, well, I don't recognize the number, so I won't answer it.
Oh,
Well, that might be something. And again, that's something that, everyday people do that too. But it's one of those kind of things where if you work with the process that you have, then you can hold them accountable and not just point fingers and say, you got to have your due diligence, if you will. You got to have your background and be able to say, this is the reason why it is. Don't just say the VA sucks because your two Marines that you were drinking with over the weekend watching Super Bowl said, oh, the VA sucks in San Antonio or the VA sucks in Long Beach.
yeah.
It sucks for them, but why?
Yeah. So tell us a little bit more about what Peacekeepers for Life does. What is that? What is that foundation, and what exactly do you guys do?
Well, we do the public speaking, and again, doing the getting the masses and getting the word out about and trying to end that stigma of suicide. We're not the traditional nonprofit.
Yeah.
I'm kind of a one man show, but I branch out. Like my service dog and I. I'm looking at the messages. Sorry.
Yeah, it's okay.
My service dog and I have a service dog, and he travels with me, and that's the canine Patriot part of it. But we are also brand ambassadors for several other nonprofits, and a couple of them are like Irish Angel, Paws and Warriors, Paws Working Support Dogs Network. We also have our own brand of coffee with Soldier Girl Coffee, and that's an Army veteran run company. And we have our own blend of coffee that's on there, and I'll put that in the comments for this later on when we get done.
Yes.
But yeah, it's one of those things because I travel 200 times a year and I do this public appearances and speaking. So I just get the word out about awareness. And then my dog and I kind of just go out and we're recognized at a lot of different places. I mean, we've been to DC. We've tried to go to the Senate and go meet with Senate and Congress, but we know how that goes. But but it's one of those kind of things where when we go out and we talk, we're spreading the information, the streets and trenches perspective, if you will, about suicide awareness, and that it's okay to not be okay, and just trying to break that stigma, trying to get rid of that ugly, that message.
Love it.
That
and I guess if you want to answer this, he had a question for you. You said you fought in the Gulf War, Mike. The same war started by the infamous crazed dictator of Iraq, Saddam Hussein.
Okay, so yeah, so I didn't realize that was a question. But yeah, so I was in the first Gulf War, and yeah, we all know the whole crazed Saddam Hussein thing. And I'll tell you, I'll be the first one to admit it. I do suffer from survivor's guilt. I feel like 9/11 would not have happened in the dynamic that it had. I feel like the Iraq and Afghanistan war would not happen if we would have handled the Bin Ladens and the Saddams back in the day.
Back in the day, yeah.
It's one of those kind of things. So yeah, I mean, he was crazed. He had a mission. He was focused. He conquered his mission until we took it back.
Yeah, it's it's hard as an American. This is me, and this is my opinion. I'll never understand wars. I mean, we understand why they're there, but I have to say, for me, that to feel the peace under the Trump administration, where there were 0 wars, the first time where we didn't see a war, and it's like, why can't it just be like that? And we know why. And, we understand why there are wars. We understand how they're allowed to happen, because now we can see the contrast when America has a huge play in what happens around the world, unfortunately.
I agree.
And it is something that we all have to recognize. I think the majority of us have recognized, and it's something that we have to work towards. And that is ensuring that the people that we put in office understand that and are working towards that world peace. And for me, and I know millions of others that feel like me, there was an actual feeling of peace for those 4 years. And, peace talks in the Middle East, and, him, whenever he went to South Korea and he crossed that line, Kim Jong-un, and they walked over there. He was the first president ever to just walk and show up and say, hey, I'm here, my friend. And it's like, why can't it just be that way? And so, and especially because of what you guys are out there on the front lines, it's you that is protecting us whenever these wars are started, and protecting others that can't protect themselves. And so the aftermath of what that leaves our veterans, and and dealing with just our own domestic issues with law enforcement and whatnot, and now having a wide open border where we're watching, right, some of these immigrants that come in. I mean, look at what happened in New York, where these illegal immigrants attacked the New York Police Department. They got arrested, but then they were let out in the street. So now it's like we're dealing with that within our own country, and these issues where people are coming in from third world countries that don't care about law. They don't care about law.
And that's only what's being reported.
Exactly.
That's only what's being reported. So we still don't know the truth.
And it does become political. We have to talk about that, Mike. We have to talk about the importance of how we are involved politically, what we understand, and who we're voting in, and how the people are getting involved in our everyday communities, are going to affect the rest of our lives. They're going to affect our communities, going to affect our children, our grandchildren, and what we're watching today. Because then, again, that puts law enforcement back on the front lines. It puts everybody, look at the wars. Now we are really shooting back in the Middle East again. We're dealing with Iran. We're dealing with, I'm sorry, I forgot the name. Hamas. And now we're back at it. We're watching Russia attack Ukraine. We know China's on the verge of wanting to attack, Taiwan. And it's like, it's ridiculous. And that's a whole other show and something but we have to talk about it.
No, we do. And that's the thing is and I don't like labels. So it's snowflakes, liberals, and all that. It's the bottom line is it's common sense. Yeah. And I'm not going to wait until it's on my doorstep. I'm not going to wait. Your organization's not going to wait until it's on your doorstep. You're going to keep pushing forward. So, and I think the masses, the majority, it does. We're just not loud. We're just not loud about it like the opposing side is.
Oh yeah. And the opposing side, like, they work together. They have so many organizations, and they've been in control. And honestly, like, it's some of the people even in our Republican Party, like Adam Kissinger, I'm sorry, this is my opinion, but you could tell what side he's on. You can tell as a career politician, he bad talks, at this point, when he badmouths people like Trump and those that are really fighting, standing next to him for the conservative values of what our Constitution stands for, that those are the ones that are against the people. And, and sadly, it is on both sides. So, but I also feel that, like you said, it's the masses, and we're at a point where we can recognize them, and we know who they are. We recognize the rhetoric. We can recognize that they are not for the people, because they're, like Trump and others that follow him and stand with him, they speak for us.
Right.
In every way. And so every single time they go against them, they are going against we the people. And that's what Luca is about. Our organization is about we the people are back. And understanding that because we were stagnant for so long, and because we didn't do anything to get involved in the community, we didn't hold our government accountable. We didn't really research the right people. We don't show up for the primaries to make sure that the right candidate is getting, on the general ballot. We don't show up to those special elections. We don't show up to the town halls. We don't show up to the school board meetings. We don't show up to the commissioner. There is so much that we just sat on our hands about for so long, that this is why we are where we are today. And so Luca, now, that's what we are about. We are showing up in the communities. We are showing up to those meetings, and we are bringing everybody with us, and we're educating them on why we have to show up, because we have evidence that when we do that and we push back, we are successful.
Don't forget about the women empowerment that you guys are pushing also.
Yeah, we are.
And that's huge. And I see that. I see that. And it's, you got the label Luca, what Luca stands for, Latinos.
Okay? United for Conservative Action. Yeah.
You're the opposite of BLM.
Oh yeah.
You're the opposite of BLM, but BLM represents a, race or whatever, but you know. It's
Well,
just
and and just because we're Latinos, we encourage everybody. You don't have to be Latino. We
of
just,
course, of course.
we are just because we are becoming the majority. We want to lead on that path, and we want to lead the way out of identity politics. And we just want to. We're locking arms with
Yeah.
every single American, every color, ethnicity, race, everything.
Yeah.
Gender.
We all bleed the
cultural
same way.
And
We all bleed
it's
the
like
same way.
we need to be Americans at this point, and because our country is in peril, bad. And
Yeah.
we need to push hard, and we need to make sure. But right now it is the time for the women to rise up. Why, Mike? Because there was an attack on our men by this feminist movement. Look at what they did to Kavanaugh. Look at what they did to Trump. So our men are under attack. Our white Americans are under attack. And so nothing's louder than a Latina woman right now. And they're coming after our children. So the mama bears are in full effect right now.
No, I get it.
Yeah, and that's in every ethnicity. It's not just the Latinos, but so we know that they're, and everybody knows it right now. It is the truth where the Latino community has the ability at this point to push us into a place and unite our fellow Americans through our conservative values, through through what we naturally believe in. And fight like hell. And that's what we're doing. And we're bold. And I mean, our people are loud, and they're strong, and they're focused, and they know what needs to be done. And because of the work that we've already done, that it's shown, the success, it's really motivating people to get involved. And that's the only way we're going to win this is by we the people. Nobody, and I like to say it in every single show, nobody is coming to save us. Nobody is going to save us but ourselves. That's why the Constitution says we the people. And that's what it's a very strong point. And we have to understand what that means, what that looks like, what that work entails. And so, but again, what you do is very important. And,
appreciate that.
Yeah, what you do is very important. So tell our audience before we go, how can they find you? How can they get a hold of you? Can they donate? Let them know how to get involved.
Well, like I said, I'm not the traditional nonprofit. We don't do fundraising for our organization. We do fundraising for other organizations. We are working on putting together a benefit show in San Antonio, Texas, spring of 25. And we're going to be bringing some country artists and some pretty good entertainment to that. It's going to be a veteran.
I'll share it everywhere.
I will. It's going to be a veteran and first responder. Our goal is to offer free, if not $5 or $10 max tickets for the attendance. But I've got a couple of sponsors that are willing to sponsor the event if we can get the response from it. We did have something similar to it before COVID in Long Beach, California. And I had it all set up. I had 3,000 to 5,000 people coming. It was a free event to veterans and first responders. Was sponsored by Subaru and Honda, but then COVID hit and we had to cancel it. But that brings up another point really quick, if I can touch on this. COVID. Can't forget about our nurses and our healthcare workers. Okay. Most people that go into nursing, they go in there, they want to help people, but we cannot forget about the nurses and those first responder, those healthcare workers that had to go to work every day during COVID. No matter what your opinion is about COVID, people were still dying, and all that kind of stuff. But these people were witnessing loved ones dying by themselves, and the nurses were the last thing that they got to talk to, and they have to live with that burden. And that PTS right there is enough to run people over the edge. There's a couple organizations out there that track police and fire departments, suicides all over the country. And right now, I think the last number I got is like 47 police and fire since January 1st.
Wow.
We're over 400 for healthcare workers in the country right now.
I didn't know that.
And again, it's not something that's public knowledge because, why they don't matter, right? No, that's garbage. They do matter because they're human too. And they did a job, so what if they get a good paycheck? They still had to go to school, still trained, still do the job. They still, put their lives at risk every day when they do their job, and all their exposure stuff that they're exposed to. But
Right.
we can't forget about them. And that's also part of this. So the other thing is that what I do is I have a for-profit business where I design and sell challenge coins, patches, stickers, and flags and koozies. And that website is PeaceKeepersForLife.com. And it's a basically an online shopping. You can buy, and what it does is I use that to pay for my travel and support my travel.
Love it.
For when I go do my public speaking. But other than that, we don't fundraise for my organization. We're not the traditional nonprofit where we deal with all that. I don't want to get into that mess.
Yeah.
I'm passionate enough about it. I've got a retirement. I work. I've got all that. I've got the income, so I can travel, and I travel when I need to. Most of the time when I go to these events, people will sponsor my expenses to get me out there and talk. And
love it.
It just works out nice.
Well, whenever, I can tell you right now, I talked to our CEO, but whenever Luca has events as well, I would love to collaborate with you, make sure that, there are things that we can do that involve you and our veterans.
Come set up a booth. I'll come set up a booth.
Absolutely.
And talk.
Because,
got
we're
breakout
here
sessions, any of that.
Yes, because we're here in Texas, and we have to keep, we have to keep organizations like yours up and center, because it's so vital.
I'll go to New Mexico too. I don't go there very often. I'll go to New Mexico.
Yes,
too.
we have our chapter out there. We'd love to have you in New Mexico. Right. Because I'll tell you right now, just even talking to my brother, what, and I think this has happened across the country, but what they're really dealing with is a fentanyl crisis. And, my brother was here before he retired with some other fellow police officers training, and they were all sharing with me like the amount of deaths of, fentanyl deaths, the way it has just skyrocketed, and how that affects, it's sad because it's young, it's older. I mean, it's affecting everybody. So,
but why, but the question about that is, why is it important to report, oh my God, we had 3 deaths. Yeah. One is too many. Right. I don't want to be that father that's got to bury my kid at 15 years old in junior high.
No,
no. Just don't want to do it.
Real quick, Larry asked a question. How will MAGA take on the woke military with semiotic weapons? Oh,
Yeah, that's a whole other show, Larry.
That's a whole different show. But I mean, I think it's something that we're watching, Larry, that we understand. But I don't think that there's enough in the military from what I can see. But again, I'm not an expert. And, this is our last year, Larry. I mean, this is, the American people have to understand that this election is so vital to this country, and who, getting Trump back in that office. As you can see, even through the primaries, nobody wants anybody else but Trump, because we saw the strength through his power, through his policy, strength through policies as well. And I know that that's a concern of a lot of people, but I don't see the majority of our military turning on us, to be honest with you.
Police either. I don't see it.
I don't see that. But I do believe that we have to think about things and take it seriously enough that everybody gets so involved in this next election that we have to turn this around. And it is going to be the only way that we're going to see it
starting yesterday.
Yes, starting yesterday. Election integrity is huge for Luca. A lot of our people, including myself, are becoming registrars and ensuring that we are registering people to vote, that we're educating them on the difference of policy, what's happened in the last 4 years prior to the 4 years before that, and everything else. So we, the people, have to get involved. We have to talk, we have to educate, we have to get out there, make sure people are registering to vote, making sure that we've got the right candidates, that we are paying very close attention to who we are getting in office. I put out a quote one time, that our politicians don't hold power. The only power that is held is by God. And we need to be electing those politicians that understand that. And so we need to bring God back into our country, back into our schools. We're living in chaos. This is a spiritual war as well. So, but we are here running out of time. And Larry, thank you for your question as well. I think that's important. And you can continue even after this. And Mike, if you can chime in after the show, onto our page, and you can put your website or just all of your information.
I'll do that. Yeah.
On there as well. So, but thank you, Mike. I really appreciate you spending the morning with me. Okay.
No, thank you very much. You take care of yourself. All right.
You too. God bless you. We'll be in touch.
Bye.
Okay. Bye.